There are certain things that once spoken cannot be unsaid. Words are bridges, but also weapons. And the older you get, the more you realize that silence isn't just golden, it's armor. There are things you must never share with anyone. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting something sacred. Your dignity, your sovereignty, your peace. You see, when you reach a certain age, you've bled enough. You've fought the wars. You've lost people, time, dreams, and you've paid dearly in years, in heartbreak, and in nights of relentless anxiety for the truths you carry. But here's the paradox. The more precious a truth is, the more vulnerable it becomes in the wrong hands. And there are hands out there, manipulative, envious, careless, that will not cradle your truth with reverence, but will crush it, twist it, mock it. That's the reality, isn't it? You spend your youth trying to be understood, trying to be seen. But the wiser you become, the less you crave validation, and the more you demand respect. And with that wisdom comes the crucial recognition. Some things are meant to remain within you, because sharing them cheapens them, or worse, destroys them. I want to speak to you today, especially if you're older, if you've walked this brutal path called life long enough to know how unforgiving people can be. You need to be aware, acutely aware, of what not to give away, because even in old age, you are still vulnerable. You are still human. And that makes you a target. Let me tell you a story. There was a man I knew, a mentor, brilliant, gentle, a man of wisdom. In his late 70s, he confided in someone, a younger family member, about his greatest regret. He told them about a mistake he made 50 years earlier, something he'd spent decades forgiving himself for. You know what happened? That story was weaponized against him. It was retold in distorted fragments, passed around like gossip at a dinner table, used to question his moral character during a family dispute. And I remember the way he looked at me after it happened. The sorrow in his eyes wasn't from the original mistake. It was from the betrayal. The realization that what he shared in trust had been used as ammunition. He said to me, I thought I was old enough to be safe from this kind of cruelty. I was wrong. That moment stayed with me. It branded itself into my psyche because it taught me something I've never forgotten. Just because you've aged doesn't mean others have matured. People often romanticize old age as a time of peace and freedom. But the truth is, it's also a time of exposure, of vulnerability, especially when you assume that your years of sacrifice have earned you unconditional respect. But respect is not a given. It's a contract. And unfortunately, it's a contract many will break if it serves their ego or their narrative. So let me be painfully clear. There are three things in particular, that you should never share. Not because you're afraid, but because you're wise. These are the truths that can be twisted, the weaknesses that can be exploited, the treasures that can be devalued the moment they leave your lips. The first of these is your deepest regrets. Regret is a complex psychological burden. It's not just about the action, it's about the identity. Regret forces you to confront the version of yourself that you once were, the flawed, desperate, or lost version. And when you share that with someone who has not earned the right to hold that version with compassion, you give them power over you. Immense power. They can use your past to invalidate your present. And it's not just about what they say. It's about how they look at you differently, how they think of you differently, how they reduce you to that one moment in time. You have to ask yourself, is the person you're about to share this with someone who sees all of you, or just the parts they can use? The second thing is your financial situation. Whether you're wealthy or struggling, never speak openly about your money. I don't care how close you think someone is. Money breeds entitlement, jealousy, manipulation. It distorts relationships. It can turn a well-meaning family member into a schemer. It can turn love into obligation and gratitude into resentment. I've seen it countless times. An elderly man shares his net worth with his children, and suddenly every conversation becomes transactional. Are you going to leave the house to me? Why are you spending that much on yourself when you could give it to the grandkids? They stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a resource, a bank, a wallet with legs. And once that shift happens, once you become a means to their ends, your autonomy starts to vanish. You don't owe anyone that information. Your finances are yours. You built your life with blood and sweat and sacrifice. You don't have to explain your choices, your will, your spending. If someone respects you, they will respect your boundaries. And the third, this one may surprise you. It's your future fears. Do not, under any circumstances, share your fears about aging, illness, or death with people who are not deeply empathetic, because fear, spoken aloud, is not always met with comfort, Sometimes it's met with dismissal, with condescension, with cold logic, or worse, with quiet satisfaction. Some people enjoy knowing that you are afraid. It gives them a psychological edge, a sense of control. It's a dark truth, but a necessary one. Some people want to know you're afraid because it makes them feel stronger. And in old age, when your physicality begins to fade and your body becomes a shell of what it once was, your mind and heart become the last battleground. If someone corrupts your inner world by feeding on your vulnerability, you begin to deteriorate far faster than your biology dictates. Hold your fears close. If you must share them, do so with someone who has earned your trust over years. Someone who responds not with advice, but with presence. Someone who doesn't try to fix you, but simply walks with you. I know what you might be thinking, but Jordan, if I don't talk about these things, I'll feel isolated. I'll feel alone. And you're right. There's a tension there. Because isolation is dangerous too. We are social creatures. We need to be seen, to be heard. But I'm not advocating for silence. I'm advocating for discernment. You don't need to be silent. You need to be selective. It's not about bottling everything up. It's about creating a sacred space inside yourself where the most precious parts of your life live, safe from judgment, untouched by opportunism, and unmarred by betrayal. Let me put it this way. Your life is a cathedral, and within that cathedral are stained glass windows made of memory, pain, triumph, failure. You wouldn't let just anyone walk in and smash them, would you? Of course not. So why let anyone into the sacred vault of your inner world unless they've shown you they know how to walk with reverence? You have to become the guardian of your own soul. And here's the real kicker. When you practice that level of discernment, when you protect your regrets, your wealth, your fears, you don't become more closed. You become more free. You're not weighed down by the anxiety of being misunderstood. You're not at the mercy of other people's opinions. You walk lighter, straighter, stronger. There's a quiet dignity and restraint, a strength in not offering everything. Because when you stop bleeding out your truths for the approval of others, you begin to reclaim yourself. Not the curated version of yourself, the real one. The one that has weathered storms, buried loved ones, lost dreams, rebuilt hope, and still wakes up every morning, choosing to keep going. And that is no small thing. That is heroic. So here's what I ask of you now. If you're listening to this and you're older, or wiser, or simply tired of being exploited, reclaim your silence. Reclaim your mystery. Stop giving away the treasures of your heart to people who haven't earned the privilege to receive them. Start walking through life like a person who owns themselves entirely, not partially, entirely. You don't need to be deep louder. You need to be deeper. You don't need to be understood by the masses. You need to be respected by yourself. And if you've already made the mistake of sharing too much, if you've already watched people twist your truth or weaponize your weakness, then let that be your awakening. Not your defeat. Draw the boundary now. Not tomorrow. Now. Because the quality of your final decades on this earth may very well depend on your ability to guard the sacred from the profane. Your story is still yours. Don't let anyone rewrite it. And if this message resonates with you, if you felt the sting of betrayal or the quiet ache of being misunderstood, share this video. Not because you want to gossip, but because you want to protect. Someone you love needs to hear this. Someone out there is about to share the wrong thing with the wrong person. Be the reason they stop. Be the reason they think twice. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. Not for me, but for you. Because you deserve reminders like this. You deserve to be armed with truth in a world that thrives on manipulation. You deserve to live your later years with dignity, strength, and peace. Remember, the older you get, the less you owe anyone an explanation. Protect your regrets, guard your finances, shelter your fears, and walk forward not in fear but in wisdom. Because wisdom is the final gift of age. Don't squander.